All right, step two. I just want to get that engine up, lifted, get it degreased, kind of make an assessment of what it needs, what it could need. And, obviously I'm going to do that rear main and do valve covers and stuff. So just kind of getting that one ready. But also, I got that AC recovered. And basically, we want to start with our top work here. And top work meaning, disconnect the battery, get that stuff out of the way. Then you got to figure what you're going to do with the harness. So here's why you want to look at it. You don't necessarily need to disconnect every single injector and every ignition coil, like these. What you want to do is you need to figure out where you can disconnect the harness to basically split the engine from the body. And so in this case, this was like our main connector right here. This connector goes to a harness which goes back into the body, goes up to this PCM, goes a number of places. So rather than disconnect like 30 connectors, I'll disconnect one big one, a ground, a couple smaller connectors, right? So I'll do like 3 or 4 connectors and then fold it up out of the way, get it way out of the way, and then I'm going to essentially leave this other harness on. And that's okay, because this harness is attached to the engine. So kind of figuring that out electrically, like this little wire right here, I don't need to track it down. It goes probably way to the back, like the oil pressure sending unit or something, but it's attached to the engine, so I can deal with it when the powertrain is out. And then obviously, your radiator is staying on the body, but the engine's going to be dropped out. So this hose is connected to the engine, and it's also connected to the radiator, so we need to disconnect that. So kind of think about that, right? You'll have some number of coolant hoses, and basically what you want to do is you want to make a virtual line to make sure that stuff that's going with the engine is on the inside, stuff that's staying with the body is on the outside, and nothing can cross the plane per se. So like this hose right here, I'm going to follow that hose down. This is an AC line right here. That's going to the compressor. If it's on the compressor, that means it's going to be dropped out the bottom, which means this end of the hose being attached to the body, which I've already actually disconnected, needs to get kind of folded into the engine because it's going to stay with the engine. And then I'm just kind of going around and making sure nothing's crossing the two. So there should be basically anything on the engine side should be folded in, anything on the body should be folded out. And obviously I'm still going to deal with this engine mount. I had a couple coolant hoses. We had the fuel line right here. This fuel line came and connected here, so the fuel line goes along the body, it goes to the engine, so we disconnect it, fold the fuel line on the body side, that separates the engine side. Same, these two coolant hoses go from the heater core to the engine, so we need to basically separate those. We could separate them from the heater core back there, but it doesn't make sense. Let's separate them right here and push them towards the body. So I'm going around, I'm sure there's things I've missed. I can say like right now there's a vacuum hose going from the brake booster over to the intake. I can't really reach it, so what I'm hoping to do is when I get down to the bottom, hoping to be able to reach it, or what I may have to do is when I get the engine starting to drop down a little, that'll give me some more room to go in and disconnect it. There was a couple electrical harnesses that had to go. This harness right here, a little dark, let me grab my light again. This harness right here goes to the transmission, and we're dropping the transmission out with it, so I've got it separate to the body, and I've got the transmission side of the harness kind of folded in on the transmission. So, I'm working my way around. I'm going to get as much top stuff as I can disconnected. The coolant was already drained in this because it had a coolant leak, but we're going to deal with the fluids we have to deal with. I'm also going to figure out what I'm going to do with the power steering. I haven't looked into it. I don't know if this has electronic power steering. It seems like it probably does. So that would mean I don't have to deal with power steering. I'm taking the transmission down, but I'm not necessarily needing to drain the transmission, so I'm leaving that alone. But I'm going to, do everything I can up here. Then I'm going to lift it and do the bottom work. So this is really more of a summary of what we got going on the top. I've got the hoses pulled, the AC lines pulled. This needed an AC quick disconnect tool, a number of, little details. I'm not pulling the engine mounts yet. I got a lot of bottom work to do, but at least I got my top relatively prepped. And so that's kind of stage 2. Top work, getting it ready, battery out, etc. You know, what I like to do, I pulled the battery in the tray. So I leave the battery here, I leave the tray here, and I leave the bolts for the tray right with the tray. Now, if you're going to take it apart for a month, you maybe want to Ziploc them, but for me, it goes bolt, nut, bolt. And so I'm just going to leave it together. And then, you know, for the air box, I'm just kind of leaving it over here. So you're going to come up with your own organizational abilities and skills. For anything I disconnected on top, I put the hardware here. Now, when I lift it and I do the bottom work, I'm going to put those here. So that way, you know, the stuff I need is kind of in the area. This is about saving time for me, not, you know, looking cool or looking impressive that I have tape and labels and names and stuff. I'm just trying to get it done, but also keep the stuff straight in my head, and this is the way that works for me. Everybody might be a little bit different. So that's the stage 2. Just about to lift it right now, and that'll start stage 3, which is like the bottom work prep. So I'll come and check in.